everybody, this is Rosa Sharon, and I'm back again with another book review. I just read In an Absent Dream by Shannon McGuire, and she got a Hugo and Nebula Award for this winning series, and this ends rather up in the air, but it's a very incredible fantasy story, very short, woefully so, about a young girl named Catherine Lundy who comes from a family that differs very much so from herself. She's a follower of rules. She has a set routine. She doesn't really do anything out of the ordinary. She lives a very mundane life until a portal shows up out of nowhere and leads her into the goblin market. And the goblin market runs by some very interesting rules that are different from those in what she calls the real world. And she realizes that things in this fantastical world are so much better than what she has in the real world. And it's a very intriguing contrast, and it's also a coming of age story, or more likely a failure to launch or regression, or the desire to remain in one place just because it's that familiarity. And there's an old saying, familiarity breeds contempt, but I don't really think that's true. I think that in her case, she was looking for an escape, but she forgot that death is a part of fair value in this world, and mockery actually dies, which I know that's a spoiler, but it's something that she forgets, and it's also a very telling point, especially when the archivist brings it up and he says everybody dies. You can't just expect to stop your clock and for the world to pause just because of one incident that occurred. Life continues despite the fact that someone died. And I know this from experience, because having dealt with death myself, it is very challenging. And for the person for whom somebody has died, their whole life has changed, but actually it made me a better person. And in Catherine's world, she later becomes Lundy. She just becomes known by her surname, which I thought was very fascinating in and of itself, because it's not her first name. Her surname is more, how do you say, a surname, anybody could be called by a surname. The first name, some people can be given a name that distinguishes them from anybody else, but it separates us due to the diversity of that. We are individuals because of our names. My first name is very old-fashioned and uncommon, but there are other people who have it. Her last name, Lundy, it just seems like something that would be responded to in a militaristic kind of setting. It's more, I think it's more formal in a way, but it's different. It's almost like, oh, you're just acknowledged as another entity, and you don't really have something to set you apart. And of course, there's a price to pay too. With Moon's price was very extreme, and she became wild, basically. Spoiler, sorry, but in this world, you have choices to make, and you have to be absolutely certain of those choices, and they could lead to you becoming a bird in this case. And she becomes a magpie, and Catherine thinks about what kind of bird she wants to become. She comes back, but she remains a human, and it leaves it up in the air. It leaves you with a desire to want to know more, whether this new chapter in the new portal within this new world, whether it's part of the goblin market or whether it's part of a whole new world entirely. And I hate the fact that it ends like that. I thought, well, is this lady or tiger, or is there just completely up in the air as to you're going to continue the series and elaborate upon this idea, because I love the whole concept of portals, and especially this one that just appears out of nowhere. There are lots of tales like this, and Legion brings that to mind. I've seen the TV series. I don't know why that's coming into my head right now, but it's like an interdimensional ability to open portals between the dimensions themselves, and sort of like with Nightcrawler, I was just thinking of him. He can disappear into other realms, but of course he has to be very cautious about doing so, because he can bring back some very nightmarish creatures when he reappears into our realm. So I thought, please don't bamf a demon into our world, but this isn't related to that. But it reminded me of this. It really did. And I don't even know if they're going to green light season 2 of Legion or not. It was so regretfully short, and I hated that, but that just is what came to mind. And little addendum about Shannon McGuire. She's the author of the Hugo, Nebula, Alex, and Locus Award winning Wayward Children's series, the October Day series, the Encrypted series, and other works. She writes darker fiction. This is what I would consider dark fiction as well. She writes darker fiction as Myra Grant. Shannon lives in Seattle with her cats, a vast collection of creepy dolls and horror movies, I'm not surprised, and sufficient books to qualify her as a fire hazard. Woman after my own heart, except no creepy dolls for me. And as far as horror movies are concerned, I do psychological horror. She won the 2010 John W. Campbell Award for Best New Writer, and in 2013 became the first person to appear 5 times on the same Hugo bout. That's rather impressive. And of course, Every Heart a Doorway, that's one of her books. Down Among the Sticks and Bones, and Beneath the Sugar Sky. Apparently that's all part of this same series. But I would really love to read, this is The Wayward Children. And I hope that she writes more, because this leaves so much left to be desired. I mean, it starts in 64 and continues on to what I would consider present day. But I don't know more than that. And it's truly a fantastic film. It's truly a fantastic book, and illustrations in it are absolutely beautiful. And I enjoy that. Usually I don't need illustrations. I could see it within my mind's eye. I could envision the goblin market and just how verdant it was, and the shimmering, the golden sheen that it had. The trees. She actually came out of a portal from a tree, and I thought, oh, that's different. It's sort of like with Christopher Robin when he followed Pooh Bear in the movie. I mean, there are just so many different things. This is the reason I adore fantasy so much, but I highly recommend it. I had never heard of Shannon before, so I'm glad I was introduced to her. And she's